Greetings, freaks and geeks. What's going on? Welcome to the Square Roundtable podcast. Guys, tonight we have a very special guest. She is an accomplished poet, author, professor, and comic book creator on top of that, guys. Please welcome Dr. Yona Harvey. And look, we're just gonna call you Yona, but I had to give you that respect first because I understand how hard that could be. I actually just haven't even started yet. I start my PhD at the end of this month, so I'm scared of it. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. I don't have a PhD. I have an MFA. So
okay.
It's people sometimes call me Professor Harvey, but I don't have a PhD, so it's okay. It's all good. No worries.
Trust me, I understand. I call mine a PhD. It's just easier to say. I'll be getting my DRPH, so it's a Doctorate of Public Health.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate it. But we are definitely here to talk about you tonight. So I wanted to open up with this. Like, how does it feel to have the title of one of the first African American women to write for Marvel? That is insane.
It's pretty exciting. It's not like I walk around thinking about it every day.
But we're a change.
When people bring it up, yeah, it makes me feel proud, and it's not something that I ever thought would happen. So I think that makes it even more special. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool.
If that was me, I'd be gloating. I'd be like, "Yeah, who are you?"
No,
Yeah.
I wrote for Marvel. Who are you?
I would have it tattooed on my forehead. So
so
relaxed about it.
Exactly.
I'd have a chain, a T-shirt, or something. I'd have to have a Marvel signed hoodie, something like so they know.
I would have to put it out there, but we'll definitely talk about that a little later. But I wanted to ask you first. I always ask my guests when they come on the show. It's been a lot of craziness going on. I just want to check and see how have you been doing these past couple of years. Stuff has been crazy. How have you been holding up?
Yeah, that's a good question. It has been sort of. I had plans to leave the country when COVID first started. I was on my sabbatical was starting, so I was going to go to Japan, and all of that stuff got delayed. So it's felt disappointing. I thought I was going to do more travel, that kind of stuff. So it's just a little isolating, a little bit lonely. My son is here, so that's been interesting.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Getting to know him better. We spend a lot of time. And I grew up with a sister. I didn't have brothers or anything like that. So I'm like, oh, this is real. I think we kind of support each other. And then I have a writing group too that we used to meet in person. Now we meet on Zoom. So that kind of helps too. So it's up and down. I tend to be a more hermetic kind of hiding person anyway. So it's not
same.
that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're a nerd or a geek, you understand that. So
It was it's like a Tuesday for you. It's like everybody's like freaking out. You're like, oh, this is my normal Tuesday. Like, what I do?
Yeah.
What I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
the crazy part is the choice. It's one thing to feel like, oh, I'm choosing this. And then it's another thing after
when you're forced.
Yeah. So after some time goes by, I'm like, oh man, this is not feeling quite as good as it did in the beginning. So yeah.
And I feel the same as you. I find myself like, because I'm the same. I'm a nerd. I just like to sit and watch my Netflix. But I find myself lying to myself a lot. I'm like, man, if I wasn't under lockdown, I'll be out there, going here, going there. I'll be out in these streets. I'm not an out in these streets person. That's not never been an out in these streets. I guarantee you, if things went back to normal tomorrow, and people be like, "Oh, are you going to be out in the streets?" Like, I'm gonna get a heated blanket.
Really, Chad? Chad?
Oh, he calling you out, bro. He calling you out.
Well, I'll just say Chad's much more extroverted than he leads on.
Okay.
You see, I ain't say nothing.
I'm gonna let him have it. Let him hoop a little bit. Let him hoop a little bit.
Chilling. Hey, look, I
saying,
have,
bro.
don't let them fool you. I have receipts of people like, hey, Chad, what we doing tonight, man? I'm just chilling, just at the house.
Hey, your receipts for that are not because you don't want to, or not because you can't, or whatever. It's just because you're not interested in those things. If you were interested, you'd go. You'd be out there in the streets.
Oh yeah.
See, here's the excuse. I have school. So every time somebody asks what you're doing, I'm like, now I'm, getting my doctorate. So I can use that excuse.
You heard it here first, okay? You heard it here first. Anybody who's trying to contact him about hanging out, you heard it here. This is what his excuse is. He killed it on himself, all right?
But look, I'm running out of degrees, so pretty soon I'm not going to be able to do it. So, but I did want to know, first of all, just a little bit about your background. Where are you from? And also, what sparked your interest in poetry and just literature in general?
I grew up in Ohio. I grew up in Southern Ohio in the Cincinnati area. And I think I grew up around, on my dad's side, very Southern people. So my dad's parents were from Georgia. And my mom's parents were from North Carolina and South Carolina. And so there's that component, a lot of good storytelling. I grew up around just a lot of sound and talk, and in a good way. And also, then on my mom's side, there was like the Pentecostal church and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I was always tuned into music and sound and all that. And I think that's what kind of sparked my interest in poetry. Although when I was young, I didn't even really know a lot. I didn't know what poetry was, but I was tuned into sound and rhythm and story. And I think that just put me on the path to writing. Nikki Giovanni's from Cincinnati, so she was a really big figure. And I remember one time my mom and her older sister, my Aunt Nellie, took me to see Nikki Giovanni and Margaret Walker. And Margaret, for some reason, Nikki Giovanni couldn't show up at the last minute. I don't know. I don't remember why. So, of course, as a kid, I was super disappointed because that's what I wanted to see. Maybe I was in like 6th or 7th grade, but it didn't matter. So I saw Margaret Walker instead, who I didn't know at the time. She's like incredible novelist and poet. And so she read a poem. I think it maybe was a poem, For My People. I think that was a poem she read. And my Aunt Nellie, who was a nurse and taught nursing, started to cry. And I was like, wow, what is happening right now? What is this thing that this Black woman writer could read something that makes my Aunt Nellie cry? And I was like, I think I'm interested in that. I want there was just something about that. It just completely blew my mind. Like, what is happening right now? And it wasn't like boo-hoo. It was like she was laughing, she was into it, but she was also so moved by Margaret Walker's work. And I was like, damn, that is incredible. So that's awesome. It was stuff like that, little things along the way that kind of put me on the path. And then I went to Howard as an undergrad, as a nursing major, also connected to my aunt. I really loved my Aunt Nellie. Like my Aunt Nellie, she had James Baldwin's books on her shelf. That was the first time I read James Baldwin. And so I thought, my Aunt Nellie's a nurse, maybe I'll do that. That lasted like a half a semester. And then I would be like,
understandable, I get it.
Missing classes, going to poetry readings, all that. I was booked. So that's the short version. I changed my major. My father was furious. He was like, that's crazy. Like, we sent you to school to be a nurse. What are you talking about? So yeah, that kind of opened the door. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. So you're basically, I guess what initially attracted you to this art form was just the emotions that it would provoke in other people, whether it's not, like you said, not so much like upset or sad crying, but just powerful emotions like laughter and Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word. Power, feeling. Like when you hear organs, and I don't even go to church anymore, but I will say it had a deep effect on me. You know what I mean? Emotionally, spiritually, all that kind of stuff. So like just the sounds of the words, like the sounds of the sermons, they were totally over my head. I didn't understand them. And a lot of times anyway, Pentecostal sermons go off the rails. They start off logically and then right?
It goes all the way to the left.
Real fast.
Yeah.
So that kind of connection to sound, intuition, and that's what I try to recreate in my work, that kind of lyricism, power. I want it to be emotional. I want people to feel things.
So it's more like soulful. You feel it in your soul. It's like something that's like in your, like, it's like in your, in you and whatnot. Like,
yes. Yeah.
That connection.
mm-hmm.
You build.
We had a lot of great writers on campus at the time, all of us together. Of course, Ta-Nehisi Coates was there, Jelani Cobb, Douglas Kearney, Ahmad Jamal Johnson, John Murillo. We were all there.
Wow, that's crazy.
It was a crazy time.
Wow.
To be a poet. We didn't even think anything of it. We just were all excited about it. Even Kent Powers was there. Kent Powers how would you know Kent Powers? He wrote a great play. Why am I blanking on this? I'm on the spot now because we're recording.
So good.
See, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali.
One Night in
Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
All these people there at the same time. There was just a lot of great energy on campus.
It was very electric.
Yes, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, man.
Yeah. And so many people would come through. Mary Baraka, Sonia Sanchez, Tony K. Bambara, just everybody. Intozaki Shange, so many people would come through.
So you had the college experience. Like, I'm really jealous.
You had the dream college. You had the dream college experience, man. You got to meet everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think I went to school with anybody that's
right.
No niggas like that.
No, that's definitely awesome, and I like a lot of what you were talking about as far as the themes behind your poetry, and I just wanted to figure out, like, where does your overall inspiration come from? Because I've listened to some of your readings, and you talk about things that are both personal, and I think it's really cool that you can write something personal, and I think that's for poetry, music, and just any kind of art form, really. And even though it's something that you alone experienced, other people can grab something from it. I think that's really cool. But I wanted to know, for you, where does most of your inspiration come from? Does it come from like observation, reacting to stuff that you've seen, or just personal experiences that you're talking about through your poetry?
I think all of those things. Overheard conversations. Like I have this poem called Q, Liberty in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburghers are chatty people. They're you just go to the bus stop or be walking and people just talk to you, which is great. So that poem is taken on that voice. He's just a person that I used to run into in the neighborhood. So stuff like that. Voices, of course, my kids, when I was writing my first book. So you just write about the things that are around you. At one point I was thinking, let me just wait until the moment is right and I'll write this book. And then I realized, I could be waiting forever if I do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If I'm a mother and these are the people who I'm around most of the time, then probably some of the poems are going to have to come from that. You know what I mean? So there's that, the personal life. And then there's always music. So things like conversations with other people. I have poems like After Etta James, like listening to Etta James music and then imagining talking to her, imagining my own mother, listening to her. It's like a mix of what's real and what's imagined. I like to do that a lot.
I kid you
No.
not.
That's awesome.
When you were saying all of that, I was over here like gonna blow my head off when you were saying that, because literally when I was in college, I took a creative writing class, and he started us off with poetry, and I had never ever written any kind of poetry, so I didn't know what to write about.
Right.
So I think like the first two, he gave us stuff to write about, and then after that, once he saw we got it, he would let us do stuff. So I was like, man, what can I write about? You know what? I can write about Saturday mornings when I was a kid, watching cartoons, remembering the smell of breakfast, you know, what I did that day. I think I wrote one about Georgia, being from Georgia.
Yeah.
I wrote one about a dream I had one night. And I think I wrote another one about a song or something. So I even wrote one about when I went to go see Star Wars for the first time. So when you were saying all that, I'm like, that's crazy, because you really do grab from like your personal like life and put it in your work. And I just, man, hey, to be a writer, y'all don't understand. Like, it makes you feel good when you do that, y'all. I'm telling you.
Like, personal experiences help you develop what people, I guess, would like, because I took an English class, and she told us to try to figure out like our writing voice, like how you would do things, like because like you can write like how you talk and stuff like that, but that's not hard to develop into writing. You have to work your way into figuring out how to do that. And yeah, and putting your own twist on it, because that's how people can tell what you wrote and what someone else wrote, even if you slap your name on it. Like, they can tell, oh no, this person didn't write that because they write this way, their voice is this way, I know this about them, this is, you know, this is what their personality is in this, their soul is in this.
Yes.
And that's an important thing for a writer, I think.
Yeah.
Is to develop that kind of personality. Yeah.
August Wilson talked about that all the time, like how his world opened, like when he finally figured out there's value in the way Black people speak, the way we talk.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
different in different places. So for him, it was tapping into the Hill District neighborhood in Pittsburgh and those voices. And that's how he built his whole cycle of plays. And so to me, like, that's very important to have that sense that I don't need anything else other than my own life, my own culture to produce the sounds and the feelings that I need. Of course, that doesn't mean that I can't connect with other cultures and places or whatever, but there is no shame in what I have. In fact, it's abundant. And I think August Wilson was really big on that too. There's a wellspring of stuff in Black life, in Black culture. And yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and
tell those stories wherever.
Yeah.
You gotta tell them.
You have to tell them, yeah.
You got to.
yeah,
And not be ashamed of it.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is
exactly,
key.
yeah.
That is key. Yeah.
And especially on the topic of like where you draw your inspiration from, because I actually found an interview of you back in 2014 with Healthy Artists, where you mentioned you also drew your inspiration from not only your own experiences, but the dialogue and cultures of other people that you might see just in public.
Yeah. Yeah, I was listening. That as a kid, I was it's interesting. I was super chatty when I was smaller. And then for some reason, I think school made me quieter. So I became a more of a listener. And I can remember that too in my grandmother's house, my paternal grandmother's house. Like my father, we would always go there on the weekend, probably to give my mother a break. My father was definitely, he wasn't a mama's boy, but he was very devoted to going to we went to his parents' house literally every weekend. And so when we would go there, there would be people from the neighborhood and there'd be beer and scotch and cigarette. It was just great. And I would just be under the table and I could just hear all the comings and goings and I feel like all of that is braided into my work in one way or another. Just that way of listening to the way the words fall, if somebody's getting fussed out or praised or whatever it is, just what that sounds like, who's upset, who's happy, all that kind of stuff, like just from right under the table, just being under the table. So
Yeah, definitely, because that's definitely, well, me and the guys know in particular, there's mostly online, people are typically upset about how people that might not align specifically with a type of culture or lifestyle, and they try to emulate it in their work.
oh
Yeah, and I just wanted to see where you are with that, because
that's
a lot of times people, this is hard to explain, because this is the real sensitive, I guess it's a real sensitive thing when someone tries to replicate a lifestyle that may not be theirs,
yeah
like a
yeah.
culture or a tradition.
yeah yeah I think
Yeah.
that's thorny.
Yeah.
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 Definitely
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
no.
like, nah.
Nah.
Yeah, I
Like,
It just, I guess I'm trying to think, when I think about my favorite literature and poems, I think it comes out of that person's knowledge of a place. So even like the way that Toni Morrison interprets Ohio, she's from Ohio, and that Black culture, August Wilson, who I mentioned, writing through and about Pittsburgh. I don't know, I just think it's powerful. It is tricky. I'm not that much on social media, so I can't say everything that's going out there, but I can guess. I know that there's hot things about appropriation and all that,
yeah.
those types of issues.
I think it's for the best that you're not on social media, especially Twitter.
I have an account, but I rarely use it.
You're not missing anything.
It's a whole
No.
mess. So
It's
Yeah.
better to stay away from it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big old mess. But one thing that I just think it's an interesting concept for like just artists in general. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I know with myself and other colleagues that I've talked to, I guess early on in your career or just in your passion, whether you're a visual artist or writer, you have people that you look up to, and I guess it's a point to where you just start trying to sort of find your footing and imitate what they do in a way. I wanted to know for you, like, how long did that take before you were able to find like your voice as a writer? And yeah, because I know you did. It was a huge experience for you when you were in college, and you kind of got a big whirlwind of just all kind of people. And I know you had tons of inspiration from that. But when did you get to the point where you were like, okay, I found who I am as a writer?
Right. That's a good question. I think probably somewhere in around putting my first poetry book together. So
okay.
that would have been around 2012. And I think of it more like it is finding your voice, but it's also being confident in your subject matter, like what you're called to do or speak on. And so I think that's what the thing was for me. Not trying to write some other woman's poems, but trying to write the poems that are specific to me. So once I could accept who I was and not be worried about, say, people I was in graduate school with, because I got my MFA in poetry. And there's always a time when you feel like a little bit competitive, or that the people you were in class with are doing better than you or passing you by. And I got married young. I had kids younger than most of the people in my class. So it was just silly to try to compare myself to them because we were just in completely different places in life. So to answer your question, once I made peace with, that's when I feel like I came into my own voice. And then I was very comfortable just letting all of that other external stuff fade away. And then I could just tap into the things that we talked about earlier that brought me a lot of joy. Excuse me. Like the sounds and the rhythms of language, the books I was reading, my kids. So the cadences of those words, folk tales, things that I like. I like to hear old people tell stories. I really do. So folk tales, being comfortable with that. This is my space. This is what I love. And I can't be worried about what other people are referencing and if they sound smarter than me or whatever the case may be. So that's how I feel like I found my voice.
No, I love that answer because you said a mouthful. Because I mean, I think
I always do. You gotta be
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that because I think that's something that everybody, no matter where you're at, can feel connected to. And that's a great lesson to learn young that, okay, I can't be worried about what it looks like they're doing over there and how great it looks for them. Because, you know, everybody's confused and on the same journey. So I think, I think that way of thinking can really cloud your mind, at least creatively. Because I know I can't even think sometimes when I'm worried about something, I'm like, oh, that person got that. And I just got to let all that noise I got to get it out.
You do have to let it go or you will be so distracted, so off target. So
you gotta understand that you don't have to compete with anybody else. You have to always make yourself better. You should be wanting to, how do I explain it? You should be wanting to always be the better, always be the like
Matthew McConaughey, he said that he won his Oscar. He's like, who do I want to be like when I grow? He said, I want to be 10 years from now. And then I want to be me 10 more years from now. I was like, hey, ain't no better way to put it, because that's true. You got to chase you. So.
And that's the best way. That's the best way of looking at it. And like I said, that right there helped you get to where you could find your own voice. So that's awesome.
And also with that particular topic, I feel like it's also important not to cloud yourself with your own ideas, because it's like that for me. I don't know about you all, but like you might have an idea and this idea sounds good in your head, but you just never seem to be able to get it on paper, and you constantly do draft after draft.
Right.
And I'd like to know, when do you tell yourself, no, I'm not gonna make any more drafts. I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there, put my signature on it, so somebody else
can call it a day.
I like how you're thinking about process. That's great. Yeah, I think at some point you do have to let them go. Like it could be you type it up and you go to a reading, open mic or whatever. So that's a kind of letting go, because you're just sharing it with people who never heard it. Maybe not, they don't even know you. And then there's something about the way that they respond to it or don't respond to it. And then that might make you want to go back and change it, revise it, or you might feel like, okay, I think this is good. Maybe I'll put it in my book or I'll publish it. You just can't be afraid of the mistakes. There's poems that I read in the first book and I'm like, I would have changed such and such. But I try not to get worried about it. You know what I mean? And I'll try to do better in the next book or when I write the next piece. But you do have to let it go or you will make yourself crazy. At some point, you just have to say, this it's almost, if you think about it, it's just like a time stamp. Like, this is where I was at that time.
Right.
You can let it go. You know what I mean? And anybody who would mess with you or cut you off because of one thing that you did that wasn't perfect, maybe that's not such a great person to have in your circle.
They're haters.
Exactly.
You know, like, oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and it's funny that you said that, because literally today I was talking with a girl I work with, and she's a writer, and she asked me, she was like, yeah, I just can't get past this story, this first pilot. And I was like, I'm trying to write it, and I keep writing it, and then I keep deleting it, I keep writing. I said, look, this is what you do. Because I had to learn how to do this just a few years ago. So this is new for me too. So I said, look, this is what you do. When you write it and you get that last sentence down, don't do nothing else. I said, step away from it. I said, go meditate, go eat, go do whatever you do to get your mind off of stuff, and then come back to it and just look at it. And then if you really feel like it's something that you have to change, then make a minor change. But don't go in there, oh, I could, because I just recently rewrote a play that I wrote years ago.
Wow.
And it took me a while to rewrite it because I kept thinking like, dang, what can I do to make it better? Or what can I do to do this? And then I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this is terrible. Why did I? You know how you beat yourself up.
Oh,
but
you're your worst critic. Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I was like, don't be like that, Marcus, because you've grown as a writer, different things now. You know how to play with words. So I just went in there, did a little here, there, switch that there, put that there. And I really didn't change much. I just changed a little dialogue, added a little part in there, that a part of me in there that I wanted to put in there, and then I just left it at that. And I haven't touched it. So I'm like, it's hard to do that. It's better, it's easier said than done. It's really hard to do that.
That's true.
Yes. And I think it's an awesome thing, especially when you can give somebody else that kind of advice once you go through it. Because it's tough, man.
It is. It never goes away either. At least for me, it hasn't yet.
Yeah. Do you have a particular style of brainstorming, like an anatomical means of doing it, or?
Yeah, I do like automatic writing, and it comes out usually some kind of a writing prompt and a timer, setting the timer, and it's almost like a meditation. And I just go and write and write and write and write and write. And then it's messy. And then the timer stops. And then I look and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize I was thinking about, look at how this person showed up in my piece or whatever. And then I can think about, oh, do I want to turn this into anything? Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's not. And I do that style of writing with my group too. So when we meet, like we met last night actually, and somebody else brought the prompt, and then we do 2 short prompts, like they're timed about 2 or 3 minutes each, and then we do a longer 20, 25 minutes, and then the thing that keeps you on target, you're going to read to each other at the end of that time. So you can't just space out.
Right, nothing.
You have to do something. You have to write.
Like, mine is blank. I have.
Right. Nobody ever does. You can't do that. You can't be like, oh, I didn't write nothing. You can't do that.
Oops.
Chad gonna be looking in the stars for something. Like, oh,
no, he's gonna write the first word and say, "Oh, it's done. I did a good draft. All right, I'll come back and write the rest later."
Look, I could string together a line really good. I'd be like, well, see,
What happened was my computer died. I need to get a new one. I don't know what happened. Like I was about to write this great poem and my computer died. Never happened. Today of all days.
I'm gonna be like, this is the poem. I'm feeling empty inside. That's what that is. But I wanted to know, so how do we get from like writing poetry to comic books? Was that something that you started in college, or? I
would read, in college, I had friends who had a comic book company.
Wow.
Okay.
And
what didn't y'all have at that college?
Right? I'm just saying, like let me know.
I want to go back in time and go to
time.
Right.
It was actually Kemp who started that company.
Oh, nice.
And so I feel like that's when I was sort of just soaking up stuff about how they're made. Actually, it was very grueling. I was not into it in that way. I like to read them. But I was like, oh, this is not for me.
Like the process behind it. I like to see I don't want to see how the sausage is made. I just want to eat the sausage, all right?
Yeah.
Right. That's it.
That was like a taskmaster too. So it was like, oh no, I just like popping into the dorm and hanging out.
I get it.
And so later, many years later, comics were always my go-to, especially when I wasn't writing poetry. And I just loved to read them, and they weren't connected to any kind of achievement or whatever. I wasn't trying to write them. And then to answer your question, Ta-Nehisi Coates was writing Black Panther. And we were texting about it, and I think I was away. I was at a writing residency or somewhere. I was somewhere out of town, and I was just saying, man, whatever, it's looking really good, this issue or whatever. And he was like, do you want to write a comic? And I was like, yeah, I want to write a
like, duh.
And but in my mind, it was like, someday. That's how I interpreted the question. But he meant, so I think it was good that I misunderstood that, because I think I tend to overthink stuff. And I would have been like, that is crazy. I don't know how to write comics. I can't do that. So I'm glad it was like a happy accident that set the whole thing in motion, because Marvel at that time was trying to get more women to write for them. So it was an accident. Like most of the good things in my life were accidents.
Hey, nothing wrong with happy accidents, okay?
Happy accidents.
I'm not a real slick networker, or I'm terrible at that. Super awkward, bungling, clumsy, none of the slick skills. I don't have any of that stuff. So it was a total accident.
I gotta ask, what comic books did you read back in the day?
Knew it was coming.
Oh.
You knew I had it there in the back
I was
pocket.
looking at you.
Dimitri's always gotta know.
I gotta know.
So many, of course, X-Men.
Oh yeah.
I loved Batman.
Of course.
Dark Knight, right? Did y'all know Brother Man? What else? Of course, like little cartoons, Peanuts, that kind of stuff. Those stuff when I was little. And yeah, those were the Spider-Man.
Okay, all right.
Hulk.
Okay.
Those type basics. Nothing out of the ordinary. And then when I got older, it tended to be more independent comics.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely had to know about that. Just to.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you're right along with us then. You definitely got your stripes. You got your stripes.
Yeah, I was like, you earned your stripes. You got them there. Yeah.
Definitely.
But
So what's it?
You know how some people know the whole history and this issue and that. I'm not that person. I don't. It's all sporadic and all over the place. I don't.
Same.
It's perfectly fine.
Same.
It's perfectly fine. You just gotta like comics, man. At the end of the day.
That's it.
Look, that's what we got Dimitri's for. He's our guy.
Okay.
Yeah. He's our go-to guy for that. He got the facts.
A person like that in your life,
You
right?
do.
Yeah, you do. You need somebody to put you on.
I have two friends here like that too. My buddy Marcel and Wayne. Those are the people I go to when I need, my God, encyclopedic history.
Yes.
I'm like, how do you know this stuff? How do you even
It's
know?
called You Don't Got a Life.
God, man, I'm telling you.
They'll be like, oh, back in issue such and such, this artist, blah, 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 the whole history of the thing. I'm like, how do you know that? How do you know all that? So I see. Chat. Okay.
But like I said, I'm like you. Like I'm the last person. If it wasn't for Marcus and Demetrius, I would not be as big into comic books as I am today.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
pretty much.
that.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Like pretty much I go to Marcus for movies and Demetrius for comics.
Yeah. I'm a walking encyclopedia for movies.
Oh yeah. Definitely Marcus got it just all beat on that category.
We all need a Marcus in our lives. We all
we do. We do.
Yeah.
So was it a big learning curve for you going from, well, I guess since you read a lot of comics growing up, it must not have been that difficult, right?
It was still a learning curve. Like I had to subscribe. Went through all the Marvel archive because low-key, I didn't read. It was like sporadically that I would see Black Panther, but honestly, I wasn't reading Black Panther like that. So I had to go into the archives and read all those back issues and all the things about Luke Cage. My buddy Wayne, who I mentioned, he knew everything about Luke Cage. So that was a good talking to him, you know what I mean? And that was the most fun. Like people always talk about me writing for Storm, and that was cool. But for me, the most fun character I had was Luke Cage was writing.
Awesome.
Luke Cage
Sweet
is
Christmas,
awesome,
yeah. That's what's up. had to put the Sweet Christmas out there.
You have to. Like, whenever you
Yeah,
mention it, you have to.
But that's a cool badge too. Like being like I said, all of these things I would literally have tattooed on my face. First,
Yeah.
the first Black woman to write for Storm. That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
insane. Like
I would have them
Definitely.
had it everywhere,
I mean,
man.
I'm talking about my LinkedIn. That's the first thing I'm putting on my LinkedIn. I'm
If
just
I
saying.
had, if you had, you were more social media presence, man, I would put there first writer.
I would.
No, definitely. Like, especially like I get like a huge face tat that says like I was
Not a
able to
face
come up.
tat.
Yes, I was like it'll say I was able to cohesively come up with a completed novel that actually exists.
No, seriously.
Right here on your forehead, right here. Just in fine print, you know,
Just
just
have it scrolling down.
right, exactly.
Seriously.
Yeah, but speaking on that, what was the process of writing You Don't Go to Mars for Love? Because I wasn't really aware of having a novel comprised of poetry. Like that's interesting.
Why do you say novel? Why do you describe it as a novel?
I just described it as a novel because it's just I guess I just see novels as a complete like body of work. That's I guess a substantial amount of information.
Okay, let me see. I don't know. I never have a real orderly way of putting a book together because my life is chaotic. My thinking is chaotic. I think it's gotten a little more stable now. So when I did, he's talking about this book. So I just felt like when I had enough poems, I started to look to see, do I see a pattern? Was there some kind of story that these poems are telling? And then I tapped into that. And it also, I sometimes will start and then put it down and then start again. And that's how it was with this book. So I didn't necessarily sit down, this is the story. It was more like I wrote a whole bunch of poems and I thought, okay, what is the story that these poems are telling me? So it was more like that. And I felt, there's some strange worlds, it's a little bit of fantasy, it's a little outer space kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And definitely I was getting divorced, so there's some breakup stuff. Every poet has to have some heartbreak. So
there's some heartbreak in there.
Yeah.
So it has a little bit of everything.
You gotta throw it in there.
Right. So yeah, all of that sort of mixed in together to make the story in this book. And then I felt like things that were harder or more painful or whatever you want to say, it was fun to translate it, to make a kind of fiction out of it, to make myself a character, to make some of the people in my lives characters, and then to imagine talking to people who aren't like Gwendolyn Brooks and Etta James, who I mentioned before. So having that kind of imaginative quality made it more fun to write instead of just literally, this is my breakup, this is my sad life. So it became fun. To me, that's the kind of novel part of it, or the fictional aspect of it, like making characters, making personalities, personas out that are drawn from crazy shit that's happening in my life.
And if you haven't read her book, this is her plug. Got her book.
For sure, definitely. We'll put all of that stuff in the description below, of course. So, and one thing is, how do you feel about like your poems being in text? Because like one thing that I really liked about you when I was listening to you read your poetry is like, you have a lot of inflections. So when you talk about, I like to hear how older people talk, or I like music, and you like the rhythm of things, it really comes out when you read your own poems. Like you really stick certain words and you like kind of groove past others. So were you worried about the reader not really figuring out, I guess, or translating it the way you would when you were like speaking it or saying it or performing your work? Did that worry you at all when putting it into a written form?
That's such a great question. No, it didn't worry me because I sort of think about it like a score or like jazz music, where there's a way that the notes would look on paper, but then when you perform it, you can have a sort of license with it and move it around. At least that's how I felt in the beginning. And now, when you ask that question, I think about it a little bit differently, and probably in the next book, I'll probably play around with space a little bit more so that it
that's cool. Mm-hmm.
Maybe influence the way a person waits from one word to the next word to the next word. You know what I mean? But me personally, I would just I just thought of the book as, this is the text, this is the score. And then when I read it or perform it, then I take a little bit of license and I can hold a word longer if I want to, or what have you. So.
Oh, okay, that's good.
That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I really wanted to know that because I was listening to Hurricane, and like when I was listening to you read it, and just like I said, how you leaned on certain parts of the repetition in your poem, I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, if I was reading that, would I have paid attention to these parts more? Like the repetition more, or would I have just chronologically read down the page and be like, oh, that's great. But the way you performed it, I definitely know I wouldn't have been able to at least see it from your perspective, from the way it's supposed to be written or performed. So yeah.
That's I like that question and the challenge in it, because I am interested in maybe bringing those two things together a little bit more. I totally see what you're saying about, if you look at Hurricane on the page, it does not look the way that I read it or perform it. And how could I translate that? How would I rewrite that poem so that it looked more like I hear it in my head? That's a great question. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much. And it's hard to write. Like, how do you write? It's like, how do you, how do you put that on the page? So I get where you're coming from, but that's awesome though. I'm glad we were definitely on the same page with that, because I was scared to ask that one.
No, don't be.
Awesome. But definitely one of the last things I wanted to ask, but once again, I wanted to let you know that it was such a pleasure having you on the show, and especially for Black History Month. Like, this is a great way to kick it off for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
But we're glad to have you. Super glad to have you.
I think I just had turned the power off on my laptop. Okay.
Oh, okay. Like, you okay?
Yeah, all right.
But the last thing I would like to know, we talked about a lot of things as far as you growing as an artist and really having one school of thought here and just seeing how it transforms throughout your career into who you are now, especially like with how you express yourself, the different avenues you've gone in. So I wanted to know, what would you say, or what advice would you have for somebody not even really going on a similar path as you, but just somebody trying to find their voice, like we talked about earlier?
I think really tap into what excites you. You have to honor your obsessions, what those subjects and those sounds that keep coming back to you, and not push them away. Because I think sometimes we have a tendency to feel like, oh, so-and-so is talking about this, or this is where it's at right now. But I think if something is on your heart and mind, and there's a reason that it's nagging you, and you should lean into that. You should follow that. That's the best advice I think I could give around that.
And that's good advice.
That's great advice.
Very awesome advice.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Josh.
One of the last things I wanted to know was, it said in one of the headers of one of your videos on YouTube, you worked with some teenagers writing about mental health issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I am really appreciating your research here. You are really.
Oh no,
no,
he get into it. Yeah,
you get real good with it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what happens when you come on the Square Round Table.
Yeah, right?
We know.
We do our research.
Yeah, we try.
Yeah, that was through Creative Nonfiction Magazine. And they had like a 10-week session where teenagers from around this region, Allegheny County, where I live, could get together and they could write about either their own struggles with mental health or someone in. It was personal. It was about them. And a few years before, I had done the adult version of that workshop. And so I really was excited to work with teenagers around it, because I do feel like people don't like to talk about depression, anxiety,
No.
all of those things, being bipolar. There's so much stuff. So yeah, I think it's important for us to talk about it, write about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, that's awesome, and I gotta condone you for that, because I wish they had stuff like that for me when I was in high school.
For sure.
Because I have when I was a kid, they diagnosed me with like ADHD.
Okay.
So it was hard for me it wasn't because I just couldn't get it. I was too smart. And I just was like, okay, this is boring. Let me do the next thing.
Yes.
So like when I write and stuff, it really helps me a lot to get everything. Like you said, sometimes I might just sit there and I'll be writing like 2-3 different things, and the page will look like a crazy mess, but I know what's there. All I need is a few words to see, and I know exactly what's there. So that is awesome, and I condone you for that. And I wish more people would do that, because that's very important.
I agree.
Especially in our community.
Yeah, especially in our community, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed. I agree.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's like, as Black people, we got to realize that there's strength in so many different ways, and like admitting that you're hurt, admitting that you have something going on, and there's strength in that. So like I said, I really applaud what you do. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I really appreciate you. This has been so much fun. I really.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Glad.
I appreciate the relaxed vibe. Just
I told you.
Yeah, we just chill around here.
This is what we do.
I love it.
But definitely, last thing before we head out, you were talking about your book. Can you please tell our viewers and listeners out there everything you have going on right now, and where they can find you on the social media that you do have, maybe?
Yeah, plug it all in right here. We'll put it all underneath the description below and everything.
Technically, I do have a Twitter account. It's Yona Harvey. It's just and then I have an Instagram. It's Yona Harvey Writer, because there's a fake Yona Harvey one that's not me.
Okay.
Someone stole our identity, guys.
All right.
Wow, awful.
Yona Harvey Writer on Instagram.
Okay.
And yeah, my book is You Don't Have to Go to Mars. Love. The first one was Hemming the Water. And actually, this Najee Dorsey, who did the cover, is in Georgia. Wow. And what else do I have going on? That's it. YonaHarvey.com. You can always go there to see my schedule or what's coming up.
All right, awesome, amazing. And like every week, guys, we will put all of that great stuff in the
doobly-doo.
And the
doobly-doo.
That inside joke never gets old. But yes, guys, this has been the Score Roundtable podcast. You can catch this amazing podcast as well as all of our other amazing episodes on our website. And that website is scoreroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. And one more time, guys, that is scoreroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. Go ahead.
And you can catch us on YouTube at any time. If you like the video, smack the like button. Leave us a comment about anything that we talked about in this video, or if you have any questions, we can answer them. That's something too. Follow us on hit the notification bell underneath the video so you get notified. Share the video. Follow us on our social media, our Instagram, our Twitter, if you have a Twitter, And join our Facebook group. Bring some writing creativity into our Facebook group. We love to see all that, especially in this time where Black History. Bring in all those stories you have. We love to hear them.
We love
definitely.
I'm
Tell
gonna
those
join the
stories.
Facebook group.
Hey, come in there. Let's go.
Hey, our
Awesome.
Facebook group just went from here to here.
Yeah, right.
Just that quick. Just
that quick.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, guys, like we said last week, happy Black History Month, guys. We are so excited that Dr. Yona Harvey joined us today to kick off our Black History Month. And yeah, guys, we love y'all. Thank you so much for watching us. And before we head out, I'd actually like everybody, including our amazing guests, to introduce themselves. And of course, guys, I'm your host, Chad Singleton.
Dmitri.
I am Josh. #yes. #no.
I'm Marcus.
I'm Yona.
And this has been the Score Roundtable, guys. We are out.
Peace.